Imagine stepping onto an island where the fog whispers secrets of the past, where prisoners, sailors, and lost colonists never truly left. Tonight, we're uncovering the 15 most haunted islands in the United States, places where history meets the supernatural. Dare to follow me into the shadows. 1. Alcatraz Island, California. Built in 1859 as a military fortress before becoming America's most notorious federal prison in 1934, Alcatraz Island was designed to hold the country's most dangerous criminals. Surrounded by the icy waters of San Francisco Bay, it housed infamous figures like Al Capone and Robert Stroud, the Birdman of Alcatraz. The prison closed in 1963, but its dark reputation never faded. Among the many stories whispered through its cold stone corridors, one haunting stands out. Former guards and visitors have reported hearing eerie cries, footsteps, and clanging cell doors in Cell Block D, the solitary confinement unit. One of the most chilling accounts comes from the 1940s, when a prisoner locked inside claimed he was being attacked by a terrifying, glowing figure. By morning, he was found dead, with strange marks around his neck. Guards at the time insisted they had seen nothing unusual, yet several swore they heard screams echoing through the night. Today, tourists often feel sudden drops in temperature or sense unseen eyes watching them while walking past the same cells. Some even capture unexplained shadows on their cameras. And as the night fog rolls in from the bay, the legend of Alcatraz reminds us some prisoners may never have escaped because they never truly left. 2. Roanoke Island, North Carolina. In 1587, over 100 English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island to establish what would become the first permanent colony in the New World. But when supply ships returned 3 years later, the entire settlement had vanished without a trace. The only clue was the word Croatoan, carved into a wooden post. Historians have debated the fate of the colony for centuries, whether they were attacked, assimilated, or lost to starvation. Yet no definitive answer has ever been found. It is this mystery that fuels the island's reputation as one of America's most haunted places. Locals and visitors alike claim to hear ghostly voices carried by the coastal winds at night, whispers that seem to repeat the word carved centuries ago. Fishermen tell of strange lights flickering over the water, as if lanterns from the lost colonists still drift in search of home. Some even report seeing pale figures in colonial garb moving silently among the trees, vanishing as soon as they are approached. The island stands today as both a historical landmark and a spectral riddle. And when the sun sets behind the Outer Banks, one question lingers in the salt air. Did the lost colony ever truly disappear? Or are they still waiting in the shadows? 3. Jekyll Island, Georgia. In the late 1800s, Jekyll Island transformed into a private retreat for America's wealthiest families. Names like Rockefeller, Morgan, Vanderbilt, and Pulitzer built opulent cottages there. The Jekyll Island Club, opened in 1888, became a playground for the elite, a place where fortunes were discussed behind closed doors. But beneath its glamour, the island held a darker past. Before its Gilded Age, it was the site of plantations worked by enslaved people, and the echoes of their suffering still cling to the land. The most famous haunting centers around the Horton House ruins, one of Georgia's oldest tabby concrete structures, built in 1743. Visitors often claim to see shadowy figures drifting through its roofless walls at night. accompanied by sudden, bone-chilling cold. At the nearby Jekyll Island Club Hotel, staff and guests have long spoken of spirits roaming its halls. One recurring tale is of Samuel Spencer, a financier who died mysteriously in 1906. Guests say they've awoken to find him sitting at the edge of their beds, silently watching, before fading into the dark. With its moss-draped oaks and misty shoreline, Jekyll Island looks idyllic by day. But when twilight falls, it becomes something else entirely, a place where history refuses to stay buried, and the past walks side by side with the living. Chapter 4. Sullivan's Island, South Carolina. First fortified in the late 1700s, Sullivan's Island played a crucial role in the Revolutionary War, where Fort Moultrie withstood a fierce British naval assault in 1776. Yet the island holds a darker chapter of history, from the 1700s to the 1800s. It served as the main port of entry for enslaved Africans in America. Historians estimate that nearly 40% of all enslaved people brought to the colonies first set foot on Sullivan's Sands, a place heavy with sorrow and suffering. Locals and visitors claim that the island is haunted by restless spirits tied to its brutal past. Late at night, eerie moans are said to echo across the shoreline, carried by the wind like cries of anguish. Some have reported ghostly apparitions walking the beaches, their figures dissolving into the mist. Fort Moultrie itself has its own legends. Guards and tourists have spoken of shadowy figures pacing the old walls, accompanied by the sound of phantom footsteps. Even the lighthouse is rumored to be watched over by an unseen presence, its beam cutting through more than just the darkness by day. Sullivan's Island tells a story of history and resilience. But after sunset, when the waves crash against the shore, one cannot help but wonder, are those voices in the wind echoes of the past, or the cries of spirits that never left? 5. Pea Patch Island, Delaware. Pea Patch Island, sitting quietly in the Delaware River, became home to Fort Delaware in 1859. Built to defend the river, the fort gained grim notoriety during the Civil War when it was transformed into a prison for Confederate soldiers. At its peak, more than 12,000 men were confined there under harsh and overcrowded conditions. Disease and despair spread rapidly, and thousands never made it out alive. Their bodies were buried in mass graves on nearby Finns Point National Cemetery. It is little wonder, then, that Fort Delaware has become one of the most haunted military sites in America. Staff, reenactors, and tourists often report phantom footsteps echoing through the stone corridors, doors slamming shut on their own, and the faint sound of moaning carried through the dank prison cells. Some visitors claim to see shadowy figures dressed in ragged uniforms pacing along the ramparts, their faces obscured, their presence chilling. In the officers' quarters, women have described the sensation of being watched, or even touched, by unseen hands. Though today the fort is a state park, offering tours and living history programs, its atmosphere remains heavy and unsettling. When the last boat departs and darkness falls over Pea Patch Island, the silence is broken only by whispers from the past, as if the prisoners are still waiting for a release that never came. 6. Hart Island, New York. Hart Island, lying just off the Bronx in the Long Island Sound, has a history as bleak as it is hidden. Since 1869, the island has served as New York City's Potter's Field, a burial ground for those unclaimed or unidentified. Over 1 million souls rest there, from victims of poverty and disease to those lost in the HIV/AIDS crisis. For decades, the island was off-limits to the public, guarded by its eerie silence and the weight of forgotten lives. Reports of hauntings are as persistent as the fog that rolls across the Sound. Ferry workers and city employees have spoken of strange shadows moving among the burial trenches at dusk. Visitors allowed in recent years describe an overwhelming sense of sorrow, sometimes accompanied by whispers carried on the wind. Paranormal investigators claim to have captured unexplained voices calling out names, as though the dead themselves are pleading not to be forgotten. Some have even reported the faint vision of children playing near the old quarantine buildings, their laughter cut short by silence. Hart Island is not a place of tourist attractions or grand ruins. It is a resting place of anonymity. Yet its silence may be more haunting than any crumbling prison or battlefield. For when the night deepens and the city lights fade in the distance, Hart Island reminds us that the most unsettling ghosts are often those with no names. 7. Plum Island, New York. Just off the northeastern tip of Long Island lies Plum Island, a place shrouded in secrecy since the early 1800s. Originally fortified as a coastal defense site during the War of 1812, it later became home to the Plum Island Animal Disease Center, established in 1954. For decades, the facility conducted research on livestock diseases, sparking countless rumors about hidden experiments and government cover-ups. Its restricted access only fueled speculation, transforming Plum Island into one of America's most mysterious locations. Though officially dismissed as legend, stories of hauntings persist. Local fishermen claim to have seen strange lights flickering above the island at night, long after the labs were locked. Others whisper of eerie animal-like cries drifting across the water. Even when the island seems deserted, some say the abandoned Fort Terry, with its crumbling barracks and dark tunnels, is haunted by soldiers from a forgotten era, ghostly figures glimpsed through broken windows or pacing silently along the shore. Paranormal enthusiasts insist that the energy here feels heavier than anywhere else on Long Island, as if secrets left untold have stained the land itself. With its blend of real history, scientific secrecy, and whispered hauntings, Plum Island remains both fascinating and foreboding. And when the moon rises over the Sound, the question lingers: what truly walks the lonely grounds of this forbidden island? 8. North Brother Island, New York. North Brother Island, hidden in the East River between the Bronx and Rikers Island, holds one of New York's most tragic histories. In 1885, Riverside Hospital was built there to quarantine patients suffering from smallpox, tuberculosis, and other deadly diseases. The island is most infamous for housing typhoid Mary Mallon, the first known healthy carrier of typhoid fever in the United States, who spent over 2 decades in isolation before dying in 1938. Even before that, in 1904, the General Slocum steamboat caught fire nearby. Over 1,000 people perished, their bodies washing ashore on North Brother Island. These layers of suffering have fed countless ghost stories. Urban explorers who have dared to visit the abandoned hospital ruins tell of echoing footsteps in crumbling hallways, doors creaking open when no one is there, and whispers that seem to rise from the overgrown wards. Some report seeing fleeting shadows in the broken windows, shapes resembling nurses or patients in tattered gowns on foggy nights. The cries of drowning victims are said to drift across the river, mingling with the rustling reeds along the shoreline. Now sealed off as a bird sanctuary, North Brother Island stands as a haunting monument to forgotten lives. And when the tide laps against its decaying docks, it's hard not to wonder, do the voices of the lost still linger, waiting to be heard? 9. Monhegan Island, Maine. 10 miles off the coast of Maine lies Monhegan Island, a rugged place first settled by Europeans in the early 1600s. For centuries, it served as a fishing outpost and later as a haven for artists drawn to its dramatic cliffs and restless seas. Yet beneath its beauty lingers a darker reputation, one shaped by countless shipwrecks. Treacherous waters and sudden storms claimed many sailors, their bodies often never recovered. Local lore insists that their spirits never left. The most enduring hauntings are tied to the island's rocky headlands. Fishermen and visitors report hearing ghostly voices calling out through the fog, as if from sailors lost at sea. On stormy nights, some have seen spectral lantern lights bobbing along the cliffs, only to vanish when approached. A few even claim to encounter shadowy figures on the trails, men in weathered oilskins who disappear without leaving a footprint. The island's lighthouse keepers over the years told similar tales of footsteps in empty rooms and doors slamming against the windless night. Though Monhegan thrives today as an artist colony and summer retreat, its haunted past is never far away. And when the ocean mist rolls in, cloaking the island in silence, many believe the dead still search for the shore they never reached. 10. Bainbridge Island, Washington. Bainbridge Island, nestled in Puget Sound, has a layered history that blends natural beauty with human hardship. In the mid-1800s, it was home to logging camps and shipbuilding yards. Later, during World War II, Bainbridge became one of the first communities where Japanese-American families were forcibly removed and sent to internment camps. The island also housed naval bases, bunkers, and defense installations, places now left abandoned, their empty corridors echoing with silence. It's here, in these forgotten military outposts and forested trails, that the stories of hauntings emerge. Residents have spoken of disembodied voices near the old bunkers, whispers that grow louder the deeper one ventures underground. Others have seen shadowy figures darting between the trees at Fort Ward, a former naval listening station. Paranormal investigators claim sudden drops in temperature and electronic disturbances while exploring the island's derelict structures. Even hikers sometimes describe hearing boots marching behind them, only to find the path empty when they turn. By day, Bainbridge Island is a thriving community known for its serene views of Seattle across the water. But when night falls and the fog drifts in from the sound, the island reveals another side, one where history refuses to stay silent, and unseen watchers seem to linger just beyond the trees. 11. Dowfuski Island, South Carolina. Dowfuski Island, nestled between Hilton Head and Savannah, carries centuries of layered history. Once inhabited by Native American tribes, it later became home to plantations where enslaved Africans toiled under brutal conditions. After the Civil War, many descendants of the Gullah people remained, preserving unique traditions of language, spirituality, and folklore. With no bridges to the mainland and a landscape marked by abandoned homes and moss-draped oaks, the island feels suspended between past and present. Its hauntings are woven deeply into Gullah legends. Locals speak of haints, restless spirits that wander the woods and shorelines. The Merrifield School, built in the 1930s and now silent, is said to echo with children's laughter and footsteps long after dark. Visitors have also described spectral figures moving near the old cemeteries, where weathered headstones lean into the earth. Some report ghostly lantern lights weaving through the swamps, thought to be the souls of those who once labored and died on the plantations. Though today Daufuskie is known for its art, history, and untouched beauty, the air remains thick with mystery. When the tide pulls back and the night grows still, many believe the voices of the past rise again, whispers of lives that refuse to be forgotten. 12 Block Island, Rhode Island. Just 13 miles off the coast of Rhode Island, Block Island has been a haven for sailors, settlers, and vacationers since the 1600s. Its rocky shores, however, have claimed countless ships. Maritime records list more than 200 wrecks in the waters surrounding the island, each leaving behind tales of tragedy and restless spirits. The Southeast Lighthouse, built in 1875, still stands watch over the perilous Mohegan Bluffs, a site long associated with legends of loss. The island's most famous haunt is the tale of the Lady in White. For generations, islanders have reported sightings of a spectral woman in flowing white garments wandering the bluffs at night. Some say she is the ghost of a young woman who leapt to her death after losing her lover to the sea. Others believe she is tied to one of the many shipwrecks, eternally searching for her family. Witnesses describe her form glowing faintly in the fog, vanishing as soon as they draw near. Guests at old inns, such as the Hotel Menisses, have also spoken of strange footsteps, flickering lights, and an inexplicable chill that settles over their rooms. Block Island may be a summer paradise by day, but when night falls and the Atlantic fog drifts ashore, it becomes something else, a place where the line between the living and the lost begins to blur. 13. Ellis Island, New York, New Jersey. Opened in 1892, Ellis Island became America's busiest immigration station, welcoming over 12 million people seeking new lives in the United States. For many, it was a place of hope. Yet for thousands, it was also a place of sorrow. Families were separated, and those deemed ill were confined in the island's vast hospital complex. Some never left, their bodies buried in unmarked graves nearby. When the station closed in 1954, the once bustling halls were left to decay, their silence heavy with memories. The abandoned hospital buildings are now considered one of the most haunted sites in New York Harbor. Workers and visitors touring the restricted areas report hearing faint cries and coughing in empty wards. Some describe the sensation of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow them through the long corridors. Paranormal groups investigating the site have captured unexplained shadows, sudden cold spots, and even disembodied voices in multiple languages. One recurring apparition is said to be that of a nurse, her figure glimpsed near the old isolation rooms before vanishing into the walls. Ellis Island today stands as a monument to immigration history, but its ghosts remind us that hope and despair once walked side by side here. And as the waves crash against its shores, one can almost hear the whispers of those who never crossed into the New World. 14. Skull Island, Washington State. Tucked within the San Juan Islands, Skull Island earned its grim name from a violent clash between Coast Salish tribes in the 1850s. According to local history, the island was once the site of a deadly ambush, leaving it littered with the remains of fallen warriors. The bones discovered there gave rise to its ominous title, and even after they were removed, the island's dark reputation endured. Today, it is uninhabited, a small forested place surrounded by the restless waters of the Pacific Northwest. Visitors who kayak or boat to Skull Island often speak of unsettling experiences. Some claim to hear the rhythmic beat of distant war drums at night, carrying across the water despite no signs of human presence. Others describe sudden drops in temperature and feelings of dread as they step onto the island's shore. Campers have reported seeing shadowy figures moving between the trees, or hearing guttural cries that vanish as quickly as they rise. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that the land itself seems charged with the grief and anger of the battle that took place there. Though the island now rests in silence, its very name is a reminder of the violence that once stained its soil. And when fog drapes over the San Juans, Skull Island appears like a ghost itself, a lonely fragment of land haunted by the echoes of its past. 15. Treasure Island, San Francisco, California. Treasure Island, an artificial landmass built in 1936 for the Golden Gate International Exposition, was meant to showcase innovation and progress. Yet beneath its polished veneer lies a surprisingly haunted history. During World War II, the island served as a naval station, and countless sailors trained, lived, and sometimes died there under harsh conditions. Rumors of unexplained accidents and untimely deaths grew over the decades, adding a spectral layer to the island's story. Visitors and locals report unsettling experiences across the island. At night, some claim to see ghostly figures in old naval uniforms marching along abandoned docks, their faces obscured by mist. Others have heard the distant sounds of ship horns, boots clanging on concrete, or doors creaking in buildings long emptied. Paranormal investigators have captured fleeting orbs of light and cold spots in former barracks, suggesting that some spirits linger where service and sacrifice once defined life. One recurring tale speaks of a sailor seen standing on the edge of the island, staring across the bay as if still waiting for orders that never came. Treasure Island's skyline may shine with city lights today, but as darkness falls over its empty docks and forgotten hangars, the past creeps back in a reminder that some ghosts cannot be buried, and some treasures are far more sinister than gold. These islands hold stories that refuse to die. But which one chills you to the bone the most? Comment below and tell us, and don't turn away, because the next haunted location might be closer than you think.